to episode 3 of MedTech with Maddie. Today we are talking about changes in the final guidance related to software requirements and software verification and validation, or V&V. We'll discuss the amount and type of software documentation that may increase or decrease for existing software devices when a sponsor files its next pre-market submission. So I'll briefly talk about a few of the differences, and then we'll turn it over to Ryan to add some additional information.
This is the beauty, by the way, of filming with animals. The unpredictable nature of it all. Because Maddie is a very insistent canine executive officer, she's going to make us do this from the hip. But I think what we're going to do, I think we're going to excuse Maddie for the rest of the podcast, but because once again, like always, she has a lot of other obligations that she needs to attend to today.
I'm Marielle Letter, Fang Consulting.
And I'm Ryan Severson, Fang Consulting. Now, what are some of these differences, Marielle?
Yeah, great question, Ryan. So some of the differences include the requirements related to the Software Design Specification, or SDS. This is one point of deviation from IEC 62304 in the final 2023 guidance, and it's also a change from the draft 2021 guidance. The requirement for the SDS to be established for both basic and software levels is what's new in this guidance. So for the basic level, no SDS is required in the final submission package to the FDA, but it must be in the design history file for any on-site FDA inspection. But at the enhanced level, the SDS is required in the submission package and also obviously in the design history file. So Ryan, what is required at each of these levels for software testing as part of V&V?
Well, for V&V, for the basic documentation level, what's needed is a summary description of the testing activities at the unit, integration, and system levels. The amount of detail that's required at the basic level really is kind of, it's limited to the system level test protocol, as that is a required submission element. That includes expected and observed results, pass-fail criteria, as well as a full test report. Now, for the enhanced documentation, they want the whole ball of wax. They want the protocols, well, they want the basic documentation, they want the summary, as well as the protocols for the unit and integration levels as well, including observed and expected results, pass-fail criteria, and the full unit and integration test reports. So now, what are some of the other things?
Great question. So for software documentation, what they're really saying now in the final guidance is that it should be produced prospectively in proper sequence throughout the development lifecycle, not retrospectively, which is what we often see done. Also, a new addition is software descriptions. So while they're not officially part of software design controls and they're typically not necessarily in the DHF, they are required for software submissions and a common source of deficiencies in those submissions. There is a section in the final guidance, section 6B, that does address software descriptions and discusses software operation specifics, things like inputs and outputs. There are some other significant changes regarding what is expected for system and software architecture, and so maybe you could describe those for our audience, Ryan.
Sure. For the software architecture, consistent with IEC 62304, the final guidance moved the system and software architecture design chart below the software requirement specification. So software architecture should be submitted to the FDA in a format that aligns with e-copy guidelines. What they have done is they've done a real nice job with the Appendix B of the guidance. They give 3 different examples across a bunch of different types of software, from handheld diagnostics to cloud-based to implantables. There's examples of what the expectation is around that software architecture. Another one, also very near and dear to my heart, is the software anomalies, and this is kind of where it gets a little tricky. As per the new guidance, it approaches software anomalies similar to kind of like a CAPA process. Here, if you'll allow me to read, the requirements are a description of the anomaly, identification of how the anomaly was discovered and wherever possible, root cause of the anomaly, evaluation of the impact on the device's safety and effectiveness, the outcome of the evaluation, and most importantly, of course, risk-based rationale for not correcting or fixing the anomaly in alignment with the sponsor's risk management plan or procedure. So now what that means for industry is that any changes that are made due to one of these anomalies are going to require, where applicable, like a regression analysis, as well as to account for any unintended effects of a software change. So yeah, that's about it for unresolved anomalies. What else, Mariel?
Well, that's a big one, Ryan. Unresolved anomalies definitely is impactful to sponsors looking to do a pre-market submission. But in addition to that, there is reference to AI and machine learning, so artificial intelligence and ML, we'll call it. But since the draft was released in 2021, FDA has actually released a new guidance that addresses this topic specifically. It was released in April of 2023, and so in the final software guidance, they actually kind of largely left it out. There's a very minor reference to it, but it's not explicit. So what Ryan and I would recommend is that if you're a sponsor, you use the pre-submission process. If your firm wishes to include AI or ML, because there are very separate considerations on those two topics. And so you might be asking, well, what now? This is a lot of information for V&V, for software device functions. So Ryan and I would recommend an analysis of the differences that we are describing today and how those may influence your firm's software development and submission process. And finally, like we mentioned last week, for the risk piece, we encourage a gap analysis.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as always, anytime that these things come up in your current development projects, we encourage you to reach out to Fang Consulting for any and all regulatory questions or needs that you may have going forward. That about wraps it up for today, Mariel. Please join us next time. We're going to have a wrap-up of this series with the new guidance's recognition of commonly used software development models. So until that time, my name is Ryan Severson, Senior Consultant for Fang.
Mario Letcher, Senior Consultant, Fang. Have a great day.
See you next time.